My name is Steve Hayes. I'm the founder and president of AllSafe Industries. I'm glad to join you all today for this training. Also have my coworker Mark Hayes on the line. So together we will run through the presentation material and then answer any questions that you may have at the end. Again, there is the Q&A button at the top of your screen or the typical chat window that you could use for your questions, and we'll gather those up at the end and go through them. So again, thanks for connecting with us today regarding Safety Suite Responder software. AllSafe Industries is a veteran-owned small business headquartered in Louisville, Kentucky. We've been a RAE Systems distributor since 1998, and we've been working with Honeywell since their acquisition of RAE Systems in 2013. We specialize in gas detection equipment, including wireless, that was introduced in the year 2000. We've helped our customers understand and use wireless gas detection. We've helped with the transition between the old ProRAE Remote and ProRAE Guardian. And here we are again, helping you transition over to Safety Suite Responder. So our agenda for today includes a quick comparison of ProRAE Guardian and Safety Suite Responder. We're going to review some video resources that we have posted to our YouTube channel. We're going to cover the components of a complete wireless gas detection system. We have a one-page quick start guide. So if you've connected everything before, there's just very few steps to get everything up and running if it's connected successfully in the past. If it does not connect successfully, we have several steps for troubleshooting, and we're going to cover that. And then we're going to get into a detailed review of Safety Suite Responder. So let's begin by discussing the similarities and differences between ProRAE Guardian and Safety Suite Responder. First, you'll notice that the main graphical displays for both programs are very similar. Both programs have a toolbar. In Guardian, it ran across the top. In Safety Suite Responder, it runs down the left-hand side. You have a map view, and this is where I find we focus most of our attention, especially once your arrays have plotted themselves on the map with the GPS coordinates. You have a device list at the bottom of the screen showing all the instruments that are currently connected, and then you have device data windows that show your sensor readings. And now in Safety Suite Responder, you'll see that in both graph form and log form. Where the primary differences are is, first of all, the Safety Suite Responder utility. This is a companion program that runs in the background with Safety Suite Responder. It's important to know how to access the utility, especially when you're troubleshooting connection issues. So we're going to go through that for you. Another difference is ensuring the devices that you want to connect to are set to active RT, RT standing for real time. So that's something else that's new that we will discuss and get you comfortable with. Finally, there's a difference in the way that you'll navigate to start the program. In ProRAE Guardian, you would click Data Sources and then start the PTM protocol. In Safety Suite Responder, you click on the Gateway to start the PTM. And then for both programs, this is where you would make sure that your serial port and your unit IDs were programmed correctly. Next, we're going to review some video resources. So in April of 2022 is when we first introduced Safety Suite Responder, and we posted that video to the AllSafe Industries YouTube channel. So feel free to take a look at that if you're interested. And then in August of 22, we did an installation, setup, and troubleshooting video. And then the video content that we derived from this presentation will be posted to YouTube as well, just to give a little more detail in the actual functions of the software. So make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can see when that content becomes available. That will be especially useful when you add new team members. They can sit down in front of an hour-long video and watch this instruction that you're about to watch today. Of course, we'll edit it for time, so it would be a little faster. The next thing we want to talk about are the components of a complete wireless system. So as you'll see, most of you are longtime RAE Systems users, area arrays, and you're transitioning from ProRAE Guardian. So most likely your meters and your RAE links are all set up properly using the same network ID and different unit IDs for each area array. Everyone should feel pretty comfortable with that. For portable instruments like multi-rays, Q-Ray 3s, ToxiRay Pros, if you have those should already be set to the same PAN ID. And of course, you can have 8 meters per channel in order to communicate those portable instruments along with your area arrays. The difference will be connecting to the new Safety Suite Responder software. Also in the past, you were accustomed to using the rugged, what we called the Rocky laptop. And that had a built-in radio card that would do the communication for you. For this training, you're using your NG Sims computer and you're connecting a RAE 3 radio set as a host on network 630 and then a cable plugged into a USB port. So again, you need your host computer running the software with available real-time licenses. You need a RAE 3 radio set as your host. And then, of course, the wireless devices. Those are the main components of a wireless gas detection system. Next, we want to cover our quick start guide. And again, this one-page guide will quickly run you through the simple steps to start a wireless gas detection system. So this assumes that you've got the software installed properly and that you've connected successfully before. We covered this in the day 0 training that you guys had this morning. If you haven't done this, then go ahead and run through each of the steps listed here. We encourage you to have your area arrays on and running during the presentation so you can click through some of the new menu options that we're going to cover in this training. If your devices don't connect, then never fear, we are covering troubleshooting in the slides just after this one. So number one, when you're trying to launch your system for the first time after taking everything out of the Pelican cases, you're going to turn on your computer running Safety Suite Responder, the RAE 3 radio set as your host, and all the wireless devices. So just make sure everything gets turned on. Number two, you're going to launch Safety Suite Responder, which opens in a browser window, and then you're going to log in to the window that pops up when you launch the software. Once the software is up and running, you're going to click on the gateway menu in the toolbar. You'll click the name of your gateway, and then you'll click Start the PTM protocol. There's a button on that gateway page that allows you to run an RF link test. This is optional because if you jump ahead to step 5 by clicking over to the main dashboard icon in the toolbar and you see your meters showing, then clearly they have connected and you wouldn't necessarily need to run the RF link test. It's when you go to the dashboard and you don't see instruments have populated that screen that you can come back and run the RF link test as part of your troubleshooting. And that's how simple it is to launch this system once you know it's up and running and you haven't changed any settings. So it's when things don't connect that we're always wondering, well, what do I need to do to troubleshoot? Where is the problem? And so we have a 3-tiered troubleshooting guide that we want to go through with you right now. So in troubleshooting level 1, we're going to make sure that everything is on and started. Now, before we begin, I want to point out that some of the steps that we're going to cover seem very obvious, and they are, but when it comes to troubleshooting, you have to start with the basics, and that means turning over all the rocks and making sure that we've done everything that we normally do, and that includes making sure that everything is turned on. So once again, is the laptop computer running Safety Suite Responder program and the RAE 3 that you have set as a host both turned on? Number 2, is there only one host radio running? And we mentioned to check with mutual aid. Oftentimes the CST team comes out to an active event and there are other responding organizations there, maybe local fire, state level agencies. And if they are also using area arrays, you want to make sure that you're communicating with those groups to ensure that only one host radio is running per network ID. I've seen that sometimes local responders will adopt the same network ID as the CST teams, And nothing stops a wireless system from communicating faster than having two hosts running in the same vicinity. So make sure there's only one host radio running. And then number three, is the wireless gas detection turned on? And are we making sure that the RAE is not stuck on a menu page? Is it still waiting for you to answer the question about completing a fresher calibration? Or is the RAE on a menu page? It's only actively transmitting data when you are on the main gas detection display screens. Next, on troubleshooting level 1, where we're making sure everything is on and running, is that Safety Suite Responder utility that I mentioned. Again, it's a program that runs in the background. If the utility window is not already open, you can drop down to what's called the system tray at the bottom of your Windows screen, and there's a little down arrow, and when you mouse over that arrow, it's going to say Show Hidden Icons. And when you click the red square, the icon for the Safety Suite Responder utility, double click, I should say, it's going to open up the utility window. Once the utility window is open, then you want to confirm on the Gateway tab of that utility window that the status says started and that the connectivity status says connected. Then you're going to click on the server tab of the utility window, and you want to confirm that all of those services show running. If not, at the bottom of the server tab, you will see buttons that say stop all and start all. So oftentimes the easiest way to get the utility up and running again is to stop all the services. And that does take about 2 to 3 minutes for everything to shut itself down. And then once everything says stopped, then you'll click the Start All button and it reboots all those services again. And then you'll look for the word running for all the server services. And on the Gateway tab, you'll look for the words started and connected. Next, in troubleshooting level 1, where we're making sure everything is on and running, number 5 is the Safety Suite Responder software running? So that's the main program. And again, when you double click your desktop icon, it's going to launch in a browser window. You'll need to log into that. And then once you're logged into the software, you want to navigate to the Gateway menu and then confirm that your PTM protocol has been started. There is an auto start button on that screen, and so I would recommend having auto start selected. But if you get to the Gateway and the button says start, that means it's not running. You'll have to click start, and then it's about a 3 to 5 second delay for that software to begin. And so when the blue button says stop, then that means you know the software is running because now the button does the opposite command. Now, when you first load Safety Suite Responder, sometimes it's going to load in with a feature called multi-factor authentication turned on. And if that's the case, before the software will all the way boot up and run, it's going to expect you to enter a code from the email address that you used to set up the software in the first place. Much like your banking website would send a code to your phone in order to let you log into your banking website, if multi-factor authentication is turned on, you'll need the code from that email account to complete the startup of Safety Suite Responder. There is a way to turn that off, and I'll show you how to do that. It's your choice, obviously. I like multi-factor authentication for my banking website. I don't necessarily need it on my wireless software, so you can turn that off, but I think by default it may come in turned on, so just one more detail to point out to you. All right, moving on to troubleshooting level 2, and this is where we're going to check that all the software settings are correct. In the number 1 is Safety Suite Responder communicating with the correct USB port. Again, since you're using your NG-SIMS computers, you are connecting a RAE 3 radio set to host mode via a hard cable connection to one of the USB ports on your computer. And so we need to ensure that the computer is communicating through the correct serial port so we can use that information in Safety Suite Responder. So in the Gateway menu under the Protocol tab, there's a drop-down box for serial port. Windows can change that COM port number from time to time, so don't expect it to be the same number every time. And you would use a program in your Windows software called Device Manager to confirm what COM port that cable, and it's called the A10, ATEN cable, that converts that from the 9-pin connector over to a USB port. You want to confirm which COM port that A10 cable is connected to. Once you've done that in Device Manager, then you can go back to Safety Suite Responder and make sure you select the correct serial port that your host is attached to. If that needs to be changed, you can only change the serial port number when the software is stopped. So if the software is already running and you realize you need to change your serial port number, stop the software, reselect the correct serial port number, and then restart the software. And oftentimes that's where we see people get hung up the most, is on that serial port number. Number 2, are any cable drivers required? So once again, using Device Manager, while you're confirming that you are connected to the right COM port, you also want to look to make sure that there's no little pop-up bubbles under that port's common LPT in Device Manager. If you're missing the Windows driver to run that patch cable, then your computer won't be able to communicate with your RAE 3 host. And so we've tried to make this as easy as we can. And again, that's why we ran the day 0 call this morning, to ensure that you do have that cable driver installed. If you ever need it again, we do have that linked on the Allsafe Industries webpage, and we'll be glad to share that with you again. And then number 3, are we polling the correct area RAE unit IDs? Again, I think everybody on the call has plenty of experience with the area RAEs. As you know, each one is assigned a specific unit ID. And so we need to ensure that the Safety Suite Responder software is polling each of those unit IDs. And if it needs to be changed, if you need to add or subtract unit IDs, once again, you can only do that while the software is stopped. So you'd stop the software, you click on select unit IDs, pick the right ones, and then restart the software. Next, on troubleshooting level 2, where we're making sure all the software settings are correct, is does the RF link test show 100%? So again, this is a new feature in Safety Suite Responder that we didn't have in ProRAE Guardian, and this gives us the ability to let the software confirm communication with each of the units that we are polling during this session. And so once you've started the PTM protocol, you can click on the RF link test button. It will click confirm on the next window to show you the unit IDs that it's getting ready to test. And then you'll also need to click the start button at the bottom of this window. Once you click start, it will send a ping to the instrument and then wait for the area RAE to respond, and then give you percentage of how many pings responded during that test. When that's complete, you'll click OK on the test window, and then you can simply X out of that Run RF Link Test screen. Now, there's one special note I want to add here, and I've experienced this over my 20 plus years working with area RAEs, and that is that sometimes if you set area RAEs too close together, that can inhibit the RF signal. And I was able to see that in real time as we started working with some of the CST teams with this software. Sometimes when you roll in the large Pelican case with the 4 area RAEs in it, it's very common just to start setting those up on a table. And if you set them right next to each other, that can hamper the RF frequency coming out of the radio. And the solution for that is very simple. Just spread them out a little bit. 1 or 2 feet is all you need to help those signals function individually. It's when they're stacked up on top of each other is when sometimes you'll have RF signal problems. So just be aware, spread out your area RAEs just a little bit. And then finally, troubleshooting level 2, step 5, are you connected to the web to plot online maps and locations? So again, we're using Google Maps to use the GPS coordinates captured by the card in the area RAE to plot that on a map. And so clearly you'll want to be connected to the internet so that that can populate. Then to confirm, you can use the toolbar on the left to navigate to the Asset Management tab and then confirm each instrument serial number is set to active RT. That's step 6. Again, active RT stands for real time. So I don't see any of the CST teams having an issue with this because you have so many licenses that you're sharing as National Guard Bureau altogether. But if you are trying to be thorough with your troubleshooting, you do want to make sure that each area array is set to active RT status. You have plenty of licenses to use, but if they're not set to active RT, you will not see that instrument on the software. So just make sure that under the asset management page, that each area array has active RT as one of the statuses that could be set for that instrument. And then finally, number 7, and I've pretty much mentioned this already, is do you have real-time licenses available? I don't see this being an issue. And to confirm, you could go to the organization icon in the toolbar, and that's where you'll see the number of device management licenses connected to your instance of Safety Suite Responder and the number of real-time licenses connected to your instance of Safety Suite Responder. And again, these should be big numbers for the National Guard Bureau because you have one primary account with almost 3,000 licenses, and then each team, each CST team, each SURF-P team is creating a sub-account under that master account. So this should not be an issue, but it is part of the troubleshooting steps, and I wanted to cover it. Last but not least is troubleshooting level 3. And this is where we're going to have you check that all the meter settings are correct. And so number 1 is your ISM radio on and set to the same network ID as your RAE 3 host. Again, think of channels on a radio because that's exactly what we're dealing with here is 900 megahertz radios. So we want the network ID on your area array to match the network ID of your RAE 3 host. And in all my experience, the CST teams are on network 630. Next, you want to check that all of your unit IDs are different. Each area array does report as its serial number, but it can also be assigned a unit ID. And although I don't see that stopping your communications, it is possible that multiple use of the same unit ID could cause communication issues. And so if each team is fielded 12 area arrays, I would have those labeled units 1 through 12. Again, if you have mutual aid on scene and you've got your local fire department and they've got units 1 through 12, then you just need some communication between the teams, and one team should set their unit IDs to be different numbers. That way we don't have any overlap and we don't have that as a cause of potential communication problems. Number 3, have the meters establish radio connection. So this is a real easy troubleshooting step because it's a visual. If you look in the top left-hand corner of your area array, you'll see this little antenna icon with the bars next to it. As long as that icon is burning steady, meaning it's not blinking, and you see the signal bars, that's a good sign that it is communicating with a RAE 3. Same for number 4. Underneath here, have the area arrays established GPS connection. And so same type of icon, but this time it looks like a little satellite. And if that GPS icon that looks like a satellite is burning steady and it has these little echo bars coming off the satellite, then that means that that area array has established its GPS coordinates, and then it should plot itself on the map that's on the screen of Safety Suite Responder. All right. And then finally, for troubleshooting level 3, we want to confirm that if you're going to connect portable instruments to your system as well, so not just area arrays going back to the host radio connected to your laptop, but maybe you want to bring multi-rays into the fold as well, then you'll need to ensure that the mesh radios are set the same. So you'll go to the mesh radio menu on both your multi-ray and your area array, and you'll confirm that they're communicating on the same PAN ID. PAN stands for Personal Area Network, and this is how you can connect multi-rays to your area arrays, and then the area arrays can transmit all that data back to your host computer. And then the last step you see here are no more than 3 area arrays set as a repeater. So this might be new information for some of the teams. We can now set area arrays as repeaters. In your version of the software, so far NGB has only authorized firmware version 1.08, and in this version of the firmware, you have to go into diagnostic mode to turn on this repeater function. In newer firmware versions for the RAE, it becomes a menu choice on the ISM radio page within the menus of the RAE. So you see it here. It's called first radio mode, and that would be able to set your RAE to be either a remote or be a remote/repeater. And when your RAE is set like a repeater, it will capture signals from other RAEs and then transmit that again onto your host radio. And you can only do that 3 times. We call that 3 hops. So you can go from an RAE directly to your host. But if you're in an urban setting or you have a lot of structure that's blocking your radio signals, you can use repeaters to defeat that blockage of the RF signal. But you can only do that 3 times. So I wouldn't have any more than 3 RAEs turned on as a repeater. If you go beyond that, once again, you could cause some communication issues. So this next section is a detailed review of the Safety Suite Responder program. Since you have the software running, we suggest that you click along so that you can learn more about the software. There's rarely an area where you can break something, so feel free to click around and be curious about what different menu commands in this do. We will cover the main features used by hazardous materials first responders. There are additional features related to industrial users that interface with other Honeywell products. So you'll see some references to BW Technologies instruments and calibration dock, which is different than our calibration station that we're accustomed to with RAE Systems. So I won't cover those other products in depth. I'm going to stay focused in on what CST teams use primarily. And then if you have questions on those other details, I'll be happy to answer as much as I know. And anything I don't know, I will reach out to Honeywell myself and collect that answer. All right. So we're going to discuss Safety Suite Responder in 3 main sections. We're going to cover the toolbar that runs down the left edge of your software screen. We're going to cover the menus and the icons that are in the title bar running across the top of your screen. And then, of course, we're going to address the dashboard and all the different windows and commands that you see in the center area of your screen. So first, we're going to start with the toolbar. Right at the beginning, I'll note that the 3 dashed lines at the top of the toolbar, the young folks are calling that the hamburger. And so if you click the hamburger, the 3 lines, all that really does is open up the names of the icons that you see there. Once you get comfortable with those icons and what they do, I would keep that closed because it gives more room for the dashboard on your computer screen. So the different icons in the toolbar are, of course, the dashboard icon. So you see the 4 squares there in the icon. That's for your dashboard. This is the main view showing your live map, your connected instruments, your sensor readings. You've got a historical data menu in the toolbar, and that's going to show you your event files and also provide a new playback feature if you wanted to play back some of the events that occur while you're actively monitoring your wireless gas detection. You've got an asset management tab in the toolbar. This is a table of all the instruments that you've ever connected to Safety Suite Responder. Safety Suite Responder does have some maintenance functions inside. So every meter you ever connect to the software will be listed in the asset management screen. You also have a user management icon. This is, of course, is how you access and add and control the users, teams, and roles that are connected to Safety Suite Responder. We'll get into more of that as well. Of course, the gateway icon, very important because this is where we start the software and ensure our settings are set properly. You have your organization tab And this is just all the details of your organization when you first loaded Safety Suite Responder on your computer. And then last but not least, the reports icon. And this is where you could pull primarily maintenance reports, things like bump checks and calibration reports, just to make sure that your fleet is being maintained properly. Now, something that I want to point out is that this training is covering Safety Suite Responder version 2.5.1. Just yesterday, Honeywell released version 3.1.1. So you can even see here on this slide, at the time that I wrote this PowerPoint presentation, we were on version 3. Now we're up to 3.1.1, but the National Guard Bureau has only authorized the 2.5.1 version, and so this entire PowerPoint is based on the version that you're currently using. The reason I'm showing you the look of the new toolbar is I wanted you to see that the gateway menu moves to the setup icon in future versions. Again, the gateway icon is very important because this is where we start and stop the software. So in future versions, when you're given the authorization to upgrade Safety Suite Responder, you won't find the gateway icon in the toolbar. You're going to find it in the title bar under the setup menu. So just make yourself a little mental note that the gateway icon will move over to the setup icon. And then on the version 3.0 toolbar, you'll only see an icon for dashboard, assets, historical data, and reports. All the other icons that you're seeing today get moved over to the settings icon. All right, back to version 2.5.1 and the toolbar menu. We're going to start with the dashboard. And as I mentioned, this brings you to the main view showing your live map, your connected devices, and your sensor readings, both in graph and data log form. The data that's being displayed in that data graph window and the data log window are coming from the instrument that you have highlighted in the device data table. Next is the historical data menu of the toolbar. When you click on the historical data menu, you'll see two primary menus on this page, events and playback. And the events, that is not every line of data that's coming out of the sensors. That's just when an instrument has an event, whether that is an alert or an alarm. And so again, it's highlighting the most important stuff as you're out doing your wireless gas detection. So this is a list of events for any alert or any alarm on any of the instruments that you have connected. The playback feature is a new function and pretty cool. You can use that to search events on particular serial numbers of instruments and then set certain date and time of the event that you're trying to focus in on. Once you have your filters all set, you literally can press a play button and it will play that event back in real time. So just another way to look at the historical data that you've accumulated while you're doing your wireless gas detection. Next on the toolbar is your asset management screen. It's a table of all the devices and the docks or calibration stations that are connected to Safety Suite Responder. When you select a device, it provides details and controls shown in that blue bar menu across the top. So you'll see in this first screenshot that this is just the table itself, and you've got some commands that go across the top. So when you click on device, clearly you're going to see all the devices that you've ever connected to the software. If you click on docks, you'll see all the calibration stations that you've ever connected to the software. You can create custom fields. You've got a model tab that shows all the different models of RAE Systems and BW Technologies instruments that we can see. And then you also have a templates menu. It's when you select one of these instruments out of the table by clicking the box at the far left-hand side that you now get this menu screen in the blue bar going across the top of the table. And these are the commands that you can initiate once you've selected an instrument from the table. And so for instance, on an area array, you can actually send like a little text message to your area arrays, and you would initiate that by clicking the send message command here in that blue bar. You can also put area arrays to sleep. So let's say you're on a 3-day venue protection event and you don't want to have to collect up your area arrays at the end of each day and then place them out the next morning. You can send a signal to put those units to sleep, and the area array uses very minimal battery power when the unit's in sleep mode. And then the next morning, as long as you didn't lose your connection, you would be able to send a signal to then wake those instruments back up. You can set the status of each instrument. Again, in order to see them on the software, they need to be set to active RT. You can change assignment to particular users that you have loaded in your software. You can look at event logs, data logs, and bump cal results. If you double click on one of the serial numbers in that asset table, then you get the details of that one particular instrument. You'll see things like its current status, whether it's connected or not. If you're using this software as your maintenance software, it will tell you your last bump test, your last calibration, when the next one is due, your current firmware version for that particular instrument. So you're getting a lot of good information on each device when you double click it out of the asset management table. Next on the toolbar menu is your user management icon. Once again, this is a list of your users, teams, and roles within your organization and attached to your instance of Safety Suite Responder. It allows you to assign devices and send communications. Now, I know the CST teams are a tight-knit team. I don't think you're assigning area arrays to individual people on the survey team, for instance, or assigning multi-arrays to the decon team. We're just not seeing that. This is probably more of an industrial feature. So the ability to do it is here, and it's your choice whether you use that or not. It does allow you also to apply different search and filters to manage this list. And then, of course, if you want to go through and add your team members to this page, because currently it probably just shows the one person that loaded the software initially, your Infosys most likely. But if you wanted to add everyone on your team, you would click the add button in the top right-hand corner of the screen. You'd add that person and their details, email, phone number if you need that, and then just make sure that any page you're on within the software that you scroll down to the bottom and click update. That saves your changes. And sometimes it can be missed because the update button is all the way at the bottom, and sometimes you'll have to scroll down to see that update button. I think in the newer version of Safety Suite Responder, they've corrected that and the update button just floats at the bottom of the screen. But in your version 2.5.1, you'll need to scroll down to click that update button anytime you make a change. All right, the next menu on the toolbar, again, very important, your gateway icon, or your gateway menu, I should say. Again, this is important because this is where we start and stop the software. It also provides details for the active connection protocols related to the settings between your PC and devices. What do I mean by that? This is where you assign the serial port that your RAE 3 is connected to. Baud rate and interval, we never change those. But the View Unit ID button, this also is where you want to make sure that you're polling the right unit IDs for the area arrays that you're trying to see. And then you see some information at the top of the screen, such as your current status, your MAC address, your IP address, things like that. So all sorts of details related to your PTM protocol on the gateway menu. Next is the organization menu. And again, this is all the details that you input during the initial setup of the software. It tells you how many device management licenses you have, how many real-time licenses you have. I spoke to that at the beginning of the presentation. You shouldn't have any issues with either of those numbers. The image you see on the screen was my demo instance of Safety Suite Responder. And as you can see, I was assigned 10 device management licenses and 10 real-time licenses. I have to ensure that the 10 instruments I want to see are set to active real-time in order to see those. Next and finally on the toolbar menu is the Reports tab. This is where you can store and schedule reports such as bump checks, calibrations, users. When you navigate to this page, you'll see that there are several preset templates already designed for you, but you can also design your own reports. So there's a lot of functionality here. Again, this is one of the areas of the software. You'll just have to play around with it and see how you can put this to good use. All right, we are finished talking about the toolbar that runs down the left-hand side of the software. Now we're going to pivot our attention over to the title bar that runs across the top of the screen. As you can see, it has the name Honeywell Safety Suite Responder. You've got an icon here for alerts and alarms on the system. And you'll see in the image I've shared there, the little orange pop-up bubble that will tell you how many alerts you're actively receiving. And so you see in my example, there's a little 3 inside that pop-up bubble. So when I took this screenshot, I had 3 alerts on the system. The bell icon is your notifications. These are messages from Honeywell related to Safety Suite Responder. So for instance, when a new firmware version comes out, or software version, I should say, you should get a notification here to say, hey, there's a new version available. Or if by chance you get low on your number of licenses, you'll get a message here that says, hey, you're critically low on your number of licenses. And that should be your trigger to look into purchasing more if you needed to. Probably more for our fire department customers than for the CST teams, but that's what you'll see under notifications. Tasks, the circle with the down arrow, this is what the software is currently doing. Again, there's some maintenance functions that you can use Safety Suite Responder for. So for example, if you were loading new firmware in a multi-RAE, if you were to click this task icon during that sequence, you would see that it is loading new firmware in a multi-RAE. It just tells you what the software is currently doing. Next is the settings icon. That's the universal gear symbol. And these are just different menus related to Safety Suite Responder features. We'll talk about that. And then finally, as most programs do, you have your initials under your account profile, and then there are menus there related to this instance of Safety Suite Responder. So let's talk about each of these in a little bit more detail. So those first 3, the alerts, the notifications, and the tasks, these are mainly informational. They are just telling you what the software is doing or messages that the software wants to send to you. So if you see a little pop-up bubble or that icon is illuminated, you can click there to retrieve whatever message is there. And then you can see once you've looked at a notification and you've read whatever you need to read, you can then click the little garbage can icon that would delete that notification. So you may want to just read those, pass that information on to who needs to know it, and then delete that out to keep that page clear. The next icon here is that settings icon, and this will open up 3 additional menus. You have an auto notifications menu. This is where you can set variables for the type of event, the type of communication, and the recipients that you want to send a message to. So for instance, if you want to send the survey team leader a message every time one of the sensors go into high alarm, you could do that using the settings under auto notifications. It allows you to choose whether that message is going out via SMS text, via email. There's even a Motorola function here if you have the Bluetooth Motorola radios. So there's several options there for sending notifications. You can even pre-program a canned message that goes out automatically. So Honeywell was really thinking about some details here when they put that menu in place. The next one is your account settings menu. You can see that this is where you can go to set up an auto logout. You can set automatic password reset. And this is where you turn on and off that multi-factor authentication that I talked about at the very beginning of the presentation. So for me and my demonstration version of Safety Suite Responder, I've turned auto logout off. I don't want the software logging me out automatically. I've turned password reset off. I have enough passwords to manage already. I don't want to have to manage my Safety Suite Responder password, so I turned that to off. And I turned off multi-factor authentication to off. So again, you can make that decision if you want some of these things to happen automatically, and you'll find those under account settings in that setup icon inside the toolbar. Last but not least, you have CHEM responder settings. This is a third-party application that you could use to apply more data from the event that you're responding to. In the new version of Safety Suite Responder, we also have another one called Viper settings. Viper is used by the federal EPA. And so if you're on an event where federal EPA is going to show up, they may want you to share some of that data through Viper. But we also know now, after training so many CST teams, that you guys have, I think it's called the MFAC interface, and that allows you to share data on your military Wi-Fi network across multiple teams. I hope I'm referring to that right. I don't know that. Okay, I was looking in my notes and I don't see it. I think you all know what I'm talking about. I think it's called the MFAC. It's the sharing protocol that you all use for National Guard Bureau teams. And then last but not least, across the title bar menus is this account profile icon. And again, this is all software related stuff. This is where you can change your password. You can reset your preferences as far as it relates to language, date and time, visual settings. So you'll notice that all the screenshots I've been using are that dark subdued color. I just like that for eye strain. If you prefer the bright visual, you can go to your preferences and change that to light mode. Logout menu, pretty self-explanatory. Release notes, once you do get the thumbs up on upgrading to the next version of this software, you can go to release notes to see some of the highlighted changes that occurred. There's a help icon that will bring up a window that lists the phone number and email address for Honeywell tech support. But I will also encourage you to lean on not only us here at Allsafe Industries, because again, since April, we've been training all the CST teams across the country. And so we've gotten really good with this software. So you can call us here at Allsafe Industries. We'll be glad to help you. But the folks over at the CommSup Center would be glad to help you as well. They're only an hour away from us here in Kentucky. We are in Louisville, Kentucky. They're in Lexington, Kentucky. And so we've got 3 different places to get help. Here at Allsafe, the CommSup Center, and then Honeywell Tech Support, and you can pull up their email and phone number clicking that help link. Next is a menu called Kiosk, and this is just an interface that makes it easy to assign devices to users. Again, I think that's more of an industrial feature where a safety manager wants to assign every worker a 4-gas meter. I don't normally see a CST team assigning specific instruments to specific team members, but you certainly could, and you would do it through that kiosk if you'd like. And then last but not least, version is just telling you what current version of Safety Suite Responder that you're using. All right, we are into our last section of the detailed review for the software. And now we're going to talk about the middle section of your software called the dashboard. And so I've numbered these to draw your attention to the part of the screen that I'm talking about currently. So we'll start with number 1. These are your dashboard menus. This is where you can select your view, set up your data sharing, edit different parameters that you're seeing on the screen. Number 2 is the map window. Of course, this is your map and all the related display commands. Number 3 is your device data table. This is a table of all the currently connected devices and their details. Now, this is different than that asset management menu over in the toolbar. Asset management shows you every instrument you've ever connected to the software. The device data table only shows your currently connected devices. And then number 4 and number 5, those are both your sensor readings, just displayed in number 4 in graph mode and in number 5 table format. So let's dig into the details on these just a little deeper. So first is the dashboard menus. Now, don't get confused about this first bar across the top. Remember, that's your title bar, and we already covered all the menus in the title bar. We're talking about the menu commands underneath there on the top of the dashboard. So the first one, marked number 1 right here, is your view menu. It's a drop-down list that allows you to change the preset window positions on your dashboard. And you've got 3 different preset window positions: real-time, consolidated, and device views. So again, if you've got your software running and you're playing along, I would invite you to use that drop down to see how your dashboard changes. Again, I like real time because it most looks like ProRAE Guardian. Number two is your data sharing option. I'm going to talk about that in the next slide. So let's skip to number three. You have this edit button over here, and this allows you to customize your dashboard windows for both placement and content. Rest assured that if you do decide to edit those window placements, there is also a button that will reset all the window positions back to their default positions. So once again, you can't really break it by clicking the edit button and playing around with those window positions. You might find a setup that works better for you and your computer screen. And then if you start moving things around and you don't like what you've done, just click that reset command and all the windows will snap back to their default positions. Now let's talk about that data sharing. There were ways to data share in ProRAE Guardian, but you had to click around different windows to get there. This one is very straightforward. The data sharing link is right there at the top of your dashboard, and this allows you to show instruments from a second instance of Safety Suite Responder and the area arrays on that computer, and then share the data to both computers. And so to start this, what you'll do is that you will go through screen here. You start by clicking data sharing, and then you'll need to input the IP address from PC number 1 over to PC number 2. So you're going to literally click data sharing on both computers. The reason you're clicking it on the computer you're trying to connect to is just to be able to obtain the IP address that they're connecting to currently. Now, we've found that number one, you have to be on the same wireless network. And I would recommend, if you feel like you're going to do data sharing on a regular basis, that you practice that, because some Wi-Fi networks make it really simple and some do not. And so you're going to want to test that out in advance to make sure it's a very seamless procedure for you to share data with another agency. I have found a cell phone hotspot is probably the easiest Wi-Fi to share among computers when you're trying to use this feature. So once you've opened up the data sharing window, once again, you will input the IP address of the computer that you want to share to. On the second computer that is trying to share, they're going to get a pop-up window that says data share requested, and they can either accept or decline that invitation. If they accept that invitation, then again, both computers will show all the devices that are connected to the two different computers. And you can sort which area arrays are on which computer just by sorting by the connection column in the device data table. So pretty cool feature, a little bit easier to use than it was in ProRAE Guardian. Next, of course, is the map window. And so this window shows a live map of your location. It's going to zoom to the instrument that you've selected from the device data table. And so let's go around this map window and I'll talk about each of the commands that you could use here. Number one is this little button with the arrows pointed at angles. And what that does is I call it the minimize maximize button, because it makes this window take over the entire dashboard. So if you just wanted to see the map window, click the minimize maximize button highlighted here at number one, and this window will take over the entire screen. And then when you're done and you want to go back to the regular dashboard view, click it again and it shrinks back down to its smaller size. Number two is layers that you can add to the map. So you can click that button to see the different layers that you can add. Once again, Honeywell is doing a lot with this software. So you'll see some things labeled that are more related to commercial, industrial, manufacturing users. So you'll see that when you click that. You also have this user icon where you can add different users to your map view. And again, that's more closely related to an industrial setting than it is for first responders. Of course, number three is highlighting your zoom in and out buttons. The button in the middle is your center button. And so if you pick an instrument, an area array out of the device data table, and then click that middle button in between the plus and the minus, it will zoom in on that one particular instrument. We have a Plume Modeling button marked here at number 4, and I will cover that here in the next slide. And then number 5 is for placing non-GPS devices. So of course your area arrays have GPS, And as soon as they see satellite and collect their GPS coordinates, then they will plot on the map as long as you're connected to the internet. But you may have non-GPS devices. So for instance, multi-rays. If you want to position your multi-rays on your map where you've staged them for whatever event you're responding to, you click the Place Non-GPS Device button. It will give you a list of all the non-GPS devices by serial number, and then you literally drag and drop those on the map where you've located them. All right, so let's talk about that button that I skipped, which is called Plume Modeling. So as we review this feature, once again, please feel free to follow along on Safety Suite Responder. This is your training, so I would click all these buttons so that you can ask me questions if you have them. When you click on this Plume Modeling icon, you want to click and hold your mouse button down, and then you literally drag this pin icon onto the map and then drop it onto the map. Once you drop it onto the map, it's going to ask you to confirm the position. So you'll either confirm or reset. Once you've confirmed it, it's going to open up what I call the Plume Modeling Wizard. And so the Plume Modeling Wizard is going to ask you a series of questions so that it can then calculate and draw a plume right onto the map. Now, you see my little 3 asterisks there at the end of that line. What I have noticed is that sometimes if you just use super random information as you're just trying to fill out the blocks of information on the plume model, sometimes it's going to come back and say, hey, you did not put information in that makes any sense, so I'm not going to draw the plume. So the information does need to somewhat make sense. You're also going to notice that some of the fields in the Plume Modeling Wizard have very small red text underneath them. So for instance, I know that the height off the ground field says that the minimum amount of data you can put in there is 6.5 feet. And so anytime I get to that field in the Plume Modeling Wizard, I just put a number that's 7 or greater, because that's what the software is looking for. So be aware if any of the fields require a minimum amount of data, and then just follow the instructions that you're given. So once you've completed the Plume Modeling Wizard, you'll click the final OK button, and then it's going to draw that plume on the map where you drop the pin. Also realize you can drop that plume modeling icon right on top of an area array. And so again, if you're following along, I would experiment with that. Grab that plume modeling pin, drop it on top of an area array, and you'll notice that the area array icon gets a little bigger for a second. And what it's doing is when you drop the pin on the area array, it's going to pull real-time sensor data from that instrument. Now, currently, it's only going to pull wind speed and wind direction. I think the future development of this particular software feature is to also be able to pull the other sensor data, but that's not currently available. Right now, it's only pulling wind speed and wind direction. The other thing that I want to make sure to point out to you is that the plume modeling component of the software currently only works for pipe leaks. Now, I know there's a lot of different leaks you might be responding to. It could be a truck overturned on the expressway. It could be a rail car that's derailed. It could be something in a waterway. But currently, the plume modeling only draws plumes based on information for a pipe leak, and we will be waiting on Honeywell to expand that to include other scenarios in the future. So right now, pipe leaks only. All right, moving on to the device data window. This is right under your map window. Once again, I have the icons highlighted. And once again, number 1 is your minimize, maximize button. So when you click this, the device data table takes over the entire dashboard area. And when you click it again, it shrinks back down to be one of 4 windows on the dashboard if you're in that real-time view. Number 2 are the 3 dots stacked up on top of each other. So earlier I shared the young folks are calling the 3 lines the hamburger. I think we should call this the hot dog. So if you click the 3 dots, that is going to allow you to customize the columns on this table. You can add and subtract columns, just like an Excel spreadsheet. You can move these columns side to side to your preference. You can sort each column, increasing and decreasing. So just think of this like an Excel spreadsheet. It works very similar to that. Number 3, as I just mentioned, you can sort by clicking the label field. You can also move these columns around. Number 4 is just showing you how you can click individual instruments. And when you click an individual area array from this list, it's that particular area array that's going to populate your data graph and your data table, the other 2 windows on your dashboard. And then finally, number 5 is a slider bar. We have this down here because there are multiple columns in this table, and there might be a column of information that you want to see that's not in visual range. So you'll use that slide bar, just like an Excel spreadsheet, once again, to slide across to be able to see all the columns of data that you have available here. Moving on is the data graph window on your dashboard, and you can see the 2 variations here. This first image is what the data graph window looks like when it's minimized. When you use that minimize maximize button to take over the entire dashboard area, you'll see that the graphs are stacked up on top of each other. And you can again use this scroll bar down the side of this window to view all your different sensor graphs. Not only will you have a graph for your gas detection sensors, you'll also have one for your radiation sensor and your sensors in the RAE sensor. Going back to the small view of the data graph, when it is this small size, you'll have to use these arrow buttons marked at number 3 to toggle through the different sensor graphs, because you can only show one at a time. And then number 4 is a timeline, and you can use these little handles on both sides of the timeline to scroll this chart down to just the time frame that you want to see in the graph. And then last but not least is the Datalog window. This is the final window on your dashboard, and it shows every reading for every sensor for every instrument that you currently have connected to the software. Once again, you have a minimize maximize button. When you click that, the Datalog window takes over the entire screen. When you click it again, it becomes small as one of 4 windows on your dashboard. And then once again, the 3 dots allow you to choose which device that is being displayed in this table. Now, we are your vendor. You are the additional to-do list, just some ideas that you could use the next time you decide to break out the area arrays and do some training. And again, this is not a to-do list. These are just some ideas that you could use to further your skill with your area arrays. And then last but not least, we want to thank everyone on the call for your service. I am prior military. I served in the Navy for 6 years. My coworker, Mark, served in the Marine Corps. So we really appreciate our military's hazmat team, the CST teams. We are at your service. So anytime you need us, please reach out. If you need equipment or replenishment parts, you can reach us at sales@allsafeindustries.com. If you need tech support for the software or additional training, you can reach us at tech@allsafeindustries.com. There's our toll-free number. There's our website. Again, I would keep an eye on our YouTube channel because we're trying to make as many update videos there as we can as well. Very good. We appreciate your time today. Thanks again, and let us know what more we can do for you. Thanks, everyone.